I don't think anyone wants to admit it, but Sunderland sort of look like title/promotion favourites at the moment. They're 5 points clear at the top of the Championship after 12 opening games, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jack Woods Football Podcast initially, who's just made a tactical insight, basically analysis video on Sunderland so far this season, blowing up on his channel, so go and watch that one after this. To his left is Tom H. Williams 23, X and YouTube links in the description. Essentially, I'm joined by two very capable analysts, perhaps the best amongst the EFL in my opinion. Don't want to big them up too much. But Jack, let's just get your opinions on Sunderland initially. What have you made of them this season? Because I think they've blown a lot of people away.
They haven't. They've brought in a real refreshment and a quirkiness that we haven't seen in the EFL for a long time. Their squad is really exciting. I think we knew that going into the season. It's young, it's raw, it's hungry, but they were missing identity and direction. And what Regis has come in and done is exactly that. He's given them an identity, he's given them a real direction. And you look at that team now and you go, yeah, I can see what they're trying to do, but it's also really difficult to stop. We've seen a foreign manager come into Sunderland in the summer. It took a while to get him in, but when they did get him in, it felt like he was a real perfect alignment with the way that he wants to develop younger players, which is what this squad's got in abundance, and also play a really attractive brand of football without sort of using that plug-in-play, high numbers of control, ludicrous passing. It's actually a lot of out-of-possession work and then a really effective work with the ball, and they do get it very, very quickly. They're really fun to watch. They're really fun to talk about, and there's some really exciting star players in there as well. Some wonder kids I'm sure we'll mention quite quickly because they're full of them.
Quite a few wonder kids, to be fair. We're off the back of another victory, unfortunately against your Oxford United, Jack. Tom, do you think, at the start of the season, I don't think anyone really believed Sunderland would have started this well. Do you now think, I don't want to jump too far, do you now think that this is their year to kick on, go back to the Prem?
There's a good chance of it. Certainly there's a very good chance. And for what Jack has said, they're different to other teams in the league, which is refreshing. And I think it's probably part of the reason why they've done so well. That teams struggle a little bit to work them out. And it's also, they're a side that are hard to play against because you can't go there and set up knowing they're going to be dominating the ball. That you know that they're going to be well organised, but also have these quick, fast attacking players, technical players as well, who can really hurt you. So I think it's really difficult to play against Sunderland as a side, and they're a very well organised unit. I think they've also a massive surprise. I think the biggest surprise for me isn't necessarily the squad, it's the manager, who he came in. Yes, he was known as a youth developer of talent at Lorient, but he also had a very kind of, I want to say poor track record there because he had a decent first season, but it didn't end great for him there. His win percentage is around 30%, which is poor, negative goal difference if you look across his whole tenure there. So there's not really the signs to indicate that he was going to come in and make them a title-winning side. You look at the other two teams that are second and third, they've got people that have won promotion from this division before as their managers. He isn't that, but he has been a breath of fresh air for this division, tactically, but also just the way he conducts himself. And I think he's actually worked out being the kind of perfect appointment because they're getting results, but also we've mentioned that crop of young players, and it's absolutely full of them. They're getting better and better, and that's what he's good at. He's not been a manager for very long in his career, but he's been a coach for a long time, developing talent. And if he can make these players go a level above what they're producing now, which they are capable of, we're only a quarter of the way into the season. If they can go up another level, which I think he can bring that out of them, then yeah, they've got a very good chance of being right up there come the end of the season.
I think what gets overlooked quite a lot about Sunderland at the moment is that there's actually quite a big project going on there, and there was this big revival of how are we going to turn Sunderland from a team that was potentially stuck in League One to getting back to where everyone's used to seeing them play, which is the Premier League. Now, they've got people like their sporting director Christian Speakman, who speaks really well about the project and what they want to do. They're off the back of a bit of a disaster on last season with Michael Beale and what happened. So I think when you go and appoint a manager from another league with, but not too much to shout about, there's always going to be question marks. But the way that they've set up, the way that they've got this so much, this enthusiasm in the youngsters and their ability, they're allowing them to flourish, but also at the same time, defensively, they look really strong as well. I think that it looks like they've nailed it at the moment with this kind of manager. And there's a lot to like about them as a club. What are your thoughts on Reggie Lebris, Jack? Is it a manager that you... Because there's an argument, we're only 12 games in, is he getting a bit lucky with the amount of talent he's got? Or are you seeing signs that this guy's kind of knows what he's doing?
Yeah, he definitely knows what he's doing. I think it's you felt when he got the job that what he's been very, very famous for being good at, this is the perfect fit for him. He is extremely, extremely good coach, and he loves to develop players that have a clear ceiling. And this Sunderland team in the Championship probably has 4, 5, 6, 7 players that have an extremely high ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like I said, this was a team that had talent, no doubt, but needed direction and needed identity. And you needed to sort of look at this Sunderland team and go, yeah, they've got some really good players, but what are they going to do week in, week out? How they're going to approach games? What does this team look like? And we can now see that. It's a really, really well-structured side, but in split-second moments can turn into a really fluid, front-footed, entertaining side. And if you can get that balance right, like he has done in the first 12 games pretty much, bar a couple of results that haven't quite gone their way, they look extremely, extremely fun. So, yeah, it took a while to get that appointment. There was a lot of rumours about who was going to take the job, but they've clearly done their homework. They clearly had a long list of managers that they wanted to bring in. And if you had to wait for somebody who, fitted that squad and that long-term project they've been banging on about for a long time and clearly is working at the moment, then waiting was the best thing to do, because the average age of the squad that played against Oxford, or the starting 11 that played against Oxford, was 24 years old. Their midfield, I think, average age is probably about 20. They've got a 17-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 22-year-old. So they knew they needed to bring in someone that can nurture that young talent, but also allow them to flourish and eventually hit the ceilings that I think we're all pretty excited about.
And being an opposition fan, did it look like a squad that was between the ages of 20 and 24?
They looked a cut above. That's the thing, that there is a handful of teams, probably 3, I'd say, if we're being really fair, in the Championship that just look another level. And Sunderland look like another level. They didn't really need to get out of first or second gear. It was pretty one-way traffic. It was comfortable, and that was down to Oxford not having the greatest of games themselves. We were quite injury-ridden. But we never got into it, and Sunderland basically just sort of took control. And it's a bit of a contradiction to what we've been saying as well. We spoke about them not really looking to control loads of games for large periods. They're very happy to sit and soak up pressure in a lower block and then hit them in transition very, very quickly. But they've also proven against Oxford at the weekend that if the side isn't looking to take control of the ball as much as them, they also will take control and they will dominate games too. So there's a real fluidity, a real balance, and a flexibility too, because Roger De Brees is all about flexibility. He wants players that can do different things at different times. He wants his team to be able to do different things at different times as well. So they look like another level.
They can control teams with and without the ball, right? They can control a side even if they haven't got the ball. There's very few games, I think maybe the exception of the Leeds game, where they were kind of, even in that game they still frustrated Leeds, but Leeds probably on top. But you've got other games where they've not had the ball, but they're able to control the opposition with their shape. They've got that mid to low block, and they're very hard to break down, and therefore you're controlling the opposition because they can have the ball, but if they're not getting any sort of threat on goal at all, then you're controlling the opposition.
The perfect example was Middlesbrough a couple of weeks ago. They had 37% of the possession at home in that game. You'd have thought a Sunderland team at home against the Middlesbrough side, they would control that game, and they didn't. With the ball, they did out of possession, but they didn't. Far less possession, but again, they won that game 1-0. Much better opportunities, I'd say, and they won that game in the end. I'd say comfortably. They won that game well because of their work without the ball as much as they work with it. But it's a balance. They can win games with 70% possession. They can win games with 37% possession because it's a team that has multiple ways of approaching football matches. And having that in a league like the Championship with such a variety of opposition that play in different ways, I think is a really, really important thing to sort of have in your arsenal.
Yeah, also, Rose, sorry to cut you off, but you mentioned something else about decisive moments. I think that's the key difference with Sunderland this season. They're very decisive. You look at the teams in this league, they've lost 2 games, obviously it's not a lot, but there are other teams in this division who have only lost 2 games. Norwich have only lost 2 games, and actually Bristol City have only lost 2 games this season. That's going to the absolute extreme. But the big difference is that Sunderland have won 9 of their 12 games. No other team can get close to them. Sheffield United have got the second most with 7. There's 2 less. They win these games that other teams will draw, and that's because they've got the quality in the final third. They're decisive. And I know they've got injuries, but the depth has actually sort of. They haven't had injuries to the sort of their key, their wonder kids, if you like, but they have had injuries. Isidore's come in, but it was my end at the start. So they have had that little bit of that depth as well to their team. They've had injuries at the back as well, and I think that they've just got that sort of decisive, that clinical cutting edge to them, where they kind of find a way to win games, and that lends to your point that they can win games in different ways. But Reggie Libri has set his team up to win, and it's a side that wins games.
I think it's very easy in these kind of videos to jump on the back of the fact of a team that's playing really well and just talk about the positive aspects. And off the back of that, then I'm trying to find a weakness. I'm trying to, let's play a little bit of devil's advocate here. What can go wrong? But when you look at what you thought, and I've brought this up a few times already, I think nearly every Sunderland fan moaned about the fact that they didn't have an out-and-out striker, and they moan about how they were going into a season without someone who was going to guarantee you approaching that 20 goal figure. But I don't think they need it right now, and I think as you said, they've proven with the amount of squad depth, with the smart recruitment in someone like Isidore as well, who looks a cut above at the moment, looks really, really energetic, looks like he's got the talent, the finishing capabilities as well, and he's off the back of replacing someone like Mayenda, who was starting really well anyway. And that's just the striking positions. You've got the goal scoring threat in Romain Mundle as well. Another example of excellent recruitment, or excellent ability to develop a player, and kind of just move on from that setback. I heard someone speaking about it today that Sunderland seem to be, whenever they get hit by something, whenever there's an obstacle in their way, they seem to just be adapting that really, really nicely. Like Mundle stepping in for Jack Clark really seamlessly, like Isidore stepping in for Mayenda quite seamlessly as well. It screams, for me, it screams Brighton. It screams like they've got the plan B, and they know exactly what's going to happen next because they're working behind a philosophy, something that they stick by and believe that it's going to work. And right now, I think it's working.
Yeah, it is. I think that's a good point, and it would be so easy for them to sort of cash in on Jack Clark and then go and buy somebody. It would have been so easy. And I think, let's be honest, I think there's probably a few Sunderland fans that would have wanted that at the time because they didn't know that Mundle was somebody who could just step up. He scored 4 goals, and you speak about where the goals coming from. That squad is very, very good at spreading goal contribution. It's so good at spreading goal contribution. So, Isidor's got 4 goals. He's scoring for fun recently. But Jack Clark's got 4 goal contributions. Mundle got 4 goals himself. Chris Riggs got 3. Neil's got 3 assists. Bellingham's got 3 goal contributions. That team is spread when it comes to output. And when you actually watch them play, you can see why that is, because they are fluid. They've got players that have got a licence to go and express themselves in different ways. The 2/8s in Bellingham of Rigg have got a real licence. They're so important with the way they build up, but they're also not afraid to get into the box. And Chris Rigg has scored some really good goals from just driving into the area. Bellingham too, he scored against Oxford. That was a brilliant run he made into the area. It's a fantastic header. But again, they've got the perfect balance between having a really, really organised, well-structured unit, but also then being able to sort of in split-second moments go and be able to get themselves in areas that can cause other teams problems. They haven't got that out-and-out striker that maybe Ross Stewart was, for example, for them a couple of years ago in League One, but they've got players that can definitely fill in for those numbers because they just managed to sort of pick them up all over the pitch. It's a brilliant trait to have because if that dries up, for example, you can then turn to other players to sort of get you out of that position.
Tom, who's your favourite player in the Sunderland team? Which one do you enjoy watching the most, or you think you're kind of getting behind the most?
Yeah, this is going to really go against the grain of what we've spoken about, because I know we've got the wonder kids in midfield and Bellingham and Rigg, you've got Mundle, who we absolutely love talking about. We've got young players, both fullbacks are great, but my favourite player in the Sunderland team is Patrick Roberts. I just think he's a joy to watch. He's got that low centre of gravity, he twists and turns, the ball sticks to him. I love players that the ball seems to stick to his foot like Velcro, really, isn't it? Like he's got glue on his foot and the ball just doesn't come off him. I think he's fantastic to watch. He also brings that little bit of experience to this team that they perhaps need. In the big moments he's a little bit composed compared to maybe some of the rawness of the other players. He's been there and done it. He's got so much pedigree. I think he's a great player to watch, and that I know we're going to maybe you said about weaknesses. Maybe we'll talk about that in terms of that is perhaps one of the big areas. They haven't got the experience throughout the squad, which I think could throughout the season may cost them. But he's one of the more senior figures they could lean on. He's still in his prime himself, but he's one of the older heads in that squad, which says a lot about the age of the team. But Patrick Roberts for me is a Great player to watch.
Before us, yours, Jack, as well. What is your opinion on that then, Tom? Do you think that the lack of experience is going to be a hindrance come the end of the season?
Possibly. I think that as well. I know I spoke about them coping with injuries well, but it does feel like they're 1 or 2 injuries away now from having a very thin team. If you look at the bench, it doesn't inspire you with loads of confidence. They've got a great 11, which has got great flexibility and balance across it. We've spoken about. They all know their roles really well, and it's actually the reason they've been so good is they've got consistency across that 11. They've had a couple of changes. Obviously, Patterson wasn't in goal at the weekend. He's been fantastic, and the centre backs have changed and the centre forward has changed. But for the most part, the midfield three has been the same. The wide players, there's been a lot of consistency there, and obviously you can't sort of legislate for having loads of injuries to key players. But you do feel if you look at that bench, it is a little bit weak. If I'm being honest, there are some good players on there, and they've actually made some smart additions as they've gone along. Obviously, Aaron Connolly could prove to be a decent signing for them. He's got potential. It's not really quite clicked for him, but as a backup striker, it's not a bad addition for a team towards the top end of the Championship. So yeah, I think that it could be an issue for them. But I think with the youth that they've got comes that exuberance, that confidence that they have, and I think they wouldn't be able to play perhaps the way they do if they had a team full of 28, 29-year-olds. They're very energetic, and also it's about that confidence, the decisiveness. Maybe some of those games that they've won by fine margins, so maybe some of those games with the more experienced players that go, right, okay, we've got a good point here, let's sit off. Whereas those young players, they're hungry, they want more all the time, and yeah, they want to get 3 points, and I think maybe that's been a key factor for them.
It's that naivety aspect as well that, yeah, I agree, I don't think they'd have if they had a squad filled with 28, 27-year-olds. So yeah, I think they're hitting kind of a perfect wave of new manager, young players, growing, earning their stripes, getting recognised by huge clubs around European football. They want to make a name for themselves, and I suppose they'd also quite like to win a title along the way too. So in my opinion, they've got the perfect blend. And Jack, cut me off if you've got anything to add on that. But who was your favourite player in the Sunderland team?
So tough. It's so difficult. I think you've probably got to pick the fullbacks, as ever mentioned. They're so important.
Yeah,
they're so important. Sirkin is someone that is, I think, going under the radar. I think his role is so important. The way they build up, they always go through the wide areas. The fullbacks play a really, really important role in them. And in that, Hume was magnificent against Oxford on Saturday. His role on that side, that triangle that they create with Rigg and Roberts and Hume, it's so dangerous. In and out of possession, they can squeeze a press out there. They can also build up amazingly because that talent is in abundance.
If Sirkin was in left wing, I don't think it'd really look out of place, if I'm honest. But the fullbacks are a really underrated part of this side, I think.
But you can't look past that midfield three.
Yeah,
I just think it's just another level. Bellingham and Rigg, the fact they average an age of 18 years of age, and they're playing like that at this level, I think is just a joke. They look like they are 27. We spoke about players that, or a team that maybe are lacking, age of the players in prime. But they look like they are in their prime. They look like they look like they've been playing at this level for a long time.
Saying they a lot, mate. If you had to pick one.
I'd probably go Chris Rigg.
Okay, I like that.
I think he's someone that is he's 17, which is just frightening. 3 years older than me, and he's doing what he's doing in a Sunderland shirt in the Championship.
3 years older.
Younger. It's been a long day. But no, I mean, he looks like he looks so confident. That's the thing, isn't it? He looks just so confident.
He does. So do you for 14 as well.
Yeah.
Romain Munda was my favourite player. At the moment, I think he can do a bit of everything. But lads, I think we're going to wrap up the Sunderland chat there for now. Thanks for joining me for this video. If you agree with our takes, let us know in the comments. In the meantime, if you want a breakdown of how Sunderland are doing what they're doing really well with, an actual on-screen analysis, by us touching on the most important parts about this Liberis side, Jack Woods Football Podcast. Link is in the description. Go and check that video out, because if you don't look at it and start talking about it, your mates will, especially if they're Sunderland fans, because that video it's doing really well at the moment. Right. Check out Tom Williams as well, and the links are in the description. And we'll see you next time. EFL shirts aren't always that easy to get a hold of, and that's why we've partnered with the Football League Store. At the Football League Store, you can browse hundreds of past and present EFL shirts for your desired club. And if you use our exclusive discount code FootballPark at checkout, you'll get 15% off your purchase. Follow your club in style this season by heading to the Football League Store, link in the description.